Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 1,
Hare
the
Krishna.
genealogical table of the
Please
daughters.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
The chapter is entitled Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. So we'll begin with the prayers. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishti. Hare Krishna, Soumya Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All good. Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept mine to all Lord Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Mataji.
Mataji. Are you able to hear Mataji?
Yes.
Okay.
We are
Sorry, trying to log in from my phone. I couldn't log in, but so my husband's phone just log in. So I'm trying.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
So we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 1, Text 1. Would you like to read, Soumya Mataji?
What to read, Mataji?
Canto 4, Chapter 1, Text 1. Both
So we
translation and purport.
translation and purport both you. Oh, we'll read. Okay.
And Sanskrit also.
No Sanskrit.
Okay, I will read for you, okay? Maitre Uvacha Manostu Shatarupayam Tishra Kanyascha Jagnire Akutirdevahutischa Prasutir iti Vishkuta.
So, are you reading or do you want me to read, Mataji?
You can read the translation and purport.
Okay. Sorry, I'm confused because I'm attending first time, so I don't know what the procedure and all.
Yeah. So what
Please.
we usually do is Govardhan Leela Mataji sends out a schedule each week. So she mentions that this is the verse we're going to cover, and based on that, like we read the verse, and then we read the translation and purport, and after reading, we discuss.
Okay.
Yeah. So while reading the verses, sometimes the person who is assigned reads, or sometimes they ask others to read if they want to read.
Okay. It's Mataji. So translation. Sri Maitreya said Swayambhava Manu begot three daughters in his wife Satarupa, and their names were Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Purport. First of all, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Om Vishnupada Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Swami Prabhupada, by whose order I am engaged in this Herculean task of writing commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam as the Bhakti Vedanta purports. By His grace, we have finished 3 cantos already, and we are just trying to begin the 4th canto. By His divine grace, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya, who began this Krishna consciousness movement of Bhagavata Dharma 500 years ago. And through His grace, let us offer our obeisances to the 6 Goswamis. And then let us offer our obeisances to Radha and Krishna, the spiritual couple who enjoy eternally in Vrindavan with their cowherd boys and damsels in Rajkund. Let us also offer our respectful obeisances to all the devotees and eternal servitors of the Supreme Lord. In this 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 31 chapters, and all these chapters describe the secondary creation by Brahma and the Manus. The Supreme Lord Himself does the real creation by agitating His material energy, and then by His order, Brahma, the first living creature in the universe, attempts to create the different planetary systems and their inhabitants, expanding the population through his progeny, like Manu and other progenitors of living entities, who work perpetually under the order of the Supreme Lord. In the first chapter of this 4th canto, there are descriptions of the 3 daughters of Swayambhuva.
Those who are not reading, please can you mute yourself if there is no echo? Thank you.
In the first chapter of this 4th canto, there are descriptions of 3 daughters of Swayambhuva Manu and their descendants. Next chapters, the next 6 chapters describe the sacrifice performed by King Daksha and how it was spoiled. Thereafter, the activities of Maharaj Dhruva are described in 5 chapters. Then, in 11 chapters, the activities of King Rutu are described, and the next 8 chapters are devoted to the activities of Pracheta kings. As described in the first verse of this chapter, Swayambhuva Manu had 3 daughters named Akuti, Devahuti, and Prashuti. Of these 3 daughters, one daughter, Devahuti, has already been described along with her husband Kardama Muni and her son Kapila Muni. In this chapter, the descendants of the first daughter, Akuti, will specifically be described. Swayambhuva Manu was the son of Brahma. Brahma had many other sons, but Manu's name is specifically mentioned first because he was a great devotee of the Lord. In this verse, there is also the word Cha, indicating that besides the 3 daughters mentioned, Swayambhuva Manu also had 2 sons. Yes, mother.
Thank you so much. Would anybody like to read text 2?
Whom you asked, Mataji?
Mataji, there are other devotees who joined. If somebody would like to read text 2. Ruchi Mataji, would you like to read text 2? Okay, maybe I'll read text 2. Akutim ruchaye pradat api bhratri matim ripa Putrika dharmam ashritya shatarupanu modita. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Akuti had two brothers, but in spite of her brothers, King Swayambhuva Manu handed her over to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of her be returned to Manu as his son. This he did in consultation with his wife Shatarupa. Purport: Sometimes a sonless person offers his daughter to a husband on the condition that his grandson be returned to him to be adopted as his son and inherit his property. This is called Putrika Dharma, which means that by execution of religious rituals, one gets a son, although one is sonless by one's own wife. But here we see extraordinary behavior in Manu, for in spite of his having two sons, he handed over his first daughter to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of his daughter be returned to him as his son. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this connection that King Manu knew that the Supreme Personality of Godhead would take birth in the womb of Akuti. Therefore, in spite of having two sons, he wanted the particular son born of Akuti because he was ambitious to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead appear as his son and grandson. Manu is the lawgiver of mankind, and since he personally executed the Putrika Dharma, we may accept that such a system may be adapted by mankind also. Thus, even though one has a son, if he wants to have a particular son from one's daughter, one may give one's daughter in charity on that condition. That is the opinion of Srila Goswami, Jiva Goswami. Okay, so today we are scheduled to read one more verse. If anybody would like to read verse 3.
I can read that first, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so this is text 3. Prajapatihi sa bhagavan ruchistasyam ajijanat mitunam brahmavarchasvi paramena samadhina. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications and was appointed one of the progenitors of the living entities, begot one son and one daughter by his wife Akuti. Purport: the word Brahma Varchasvi is very significant. Ruchi was a Brahmana, and he executed the Brahminical duties very rigidly. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Brahminical qualifications are control of the senses, control of the mind, cleanliness within and without, development of spiritual and material knowledge, simplicity, truthfulness, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, etc. There are many qualities which indicate a Brahminical personality, and it is understood that Ruchi followed all the Brahminical principles rigidly. Therefore, he is specifically mentioned as Brahma Varchasvi. One who is born of a Brahmana father but does not act as a Brahmana is called, in Vedic language, a Brahma Bandhu, and is calculated to be on the level of Shudras and women. Thus, in the Bhagavatam, we find that Mahabharat was specifically compiled by Vyasadeva for Stri Shudra Brahma Bandhu. Stri means women, Shudra means the lower class of civilized human society. And Brahmabandhu means persons who are born in the families of Brahmanas but do not follow the rules and regulations carefully. All of these three classes are called less intelligent. They have no access to the study of the Vedas, which are specifically meant for persons who have acquired the Brahminical qualifications. This restriction is based not upon any sectarian distinction, but upon qualification. The Vedic literatures cannot be understood unless one has developed the Brahminical qualifications. It is regrettable, therefore, that persons who have no Brahminical qualifications and have never been trained under a bona fide spiritual master nevertheless comment on Vedic literatures like the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas, for such persons cannot deliver their real message. Ruchi was considered a first-class Brahmana. Therefore, he is mentioned here as Brahma Varchasvi, one who has full prowess in Brahminical strength. Thank you, Matajis.
Thank you, Govardhan Leela Mataji and Soumya Mataji for reading. So this is an exciting section because this is the beginning of the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada actually, he gives his summary of what is to be expected in the fourth canto. He first of all offers obeisances to his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who gave him the instruction to write in English language. So on his order, he took up the task of writing Srimad Bhagavatam into English, and he also not only translated the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, but he also gave elaborate purports, which we call as the Bhaktivedanta purports. So this is a great act of kindness by Srila Prabhupada, because almost for the first time in history, persons who were not born in Brahminical families and who were not Vaishnavas from birth were given an opportunity to study Vedic literature in English. So prior to that also, like some acharyas had given commentaries, including of course there are many persons who are not bona fide who wrote commentaries on Bhagavad Gita in English. And there were also bona fide acharyas like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his father Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who translated many Vaishnava literatures into English. But Prabhupada, his extraordinary achievement was that not only did he translate literatures into English, but they were widely published and distributed for the benefit of human society. In fact, the only main instruction that Prabhupada received from his spiritual master is, if you have money, write and print books. That was one of his main instructions that he received from his spiritual master. And until the end of his life, Prabhupada translated Vaishnava literatures into English, and he gave his Bhaktivedanta purports, because it is not easy to understand these literatures if we didn't have these elaborate purports from Srila Prabhupada, which are very, very simple, which make very advanced spiritual literatures accessible to even to a layman. So that was the unique contribution of Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is offering his obeisances to his spiritual master and to Lord Chaitanya and to the six Goswamis and to Radha and Krishna. And this is very important, actually, that we offer prayers before we study, speak, or write Vaishnava literature, or speak about Vaishnava literature, because when one recites and seeks blessings of the previous acharyas, then all the obstacles that one may face in their study or speaking or writing are removed by the mercy of the acharyas. That is why before we read or speak, we always recite the Mangala Charana. Mangala Charana are the auspicious prayers. So every day we do that, like when we study Srimad Bhagavatam. Not only Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or any literature for that matter, before we study, we offer prayers to the disciplic succession and to the six Goswamis and Lord Chaitanya and to Radha and Krishna. So, and we also seek the mercy of the devotees and eternal servitors of the Supreme Lord, who are basically the Vaishnavas. So, by their mercy, all the obstacles on the spiritual path are cleared. And Prabhupada then goes on to explain that there are 31 chapters in the fourth canto. And yesterday, Govardhan Leela Mataji brought up a very nice question that usually, like, why is this lineage of Manus being described in the fourth canto? So I was thinking about it, and this is a very nice question, because I do not know if the process of creation beginning from Lord Vishnu is described in Bible. So I think the first three cantos are skipped, and then the lineage of Manus are described, or, like, the beginning of mankind is described, because before this, in three cantos, we did study to a on a decent level. We did study that creation actually happens from the three Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakshay Vishnu. And from Garbhodakshay Vishnu's navel, Lord Brahma comes. And we also study about how he was trying to create the universes. So from there, in one sense, it's a dialogue, but in another sense, it's also a natural sequence of how creation actually began. So creation began from Vishnu, a Mahavishnu, who glanced over Pradhan, or Prakriti, and from that, like, the creation of universes begin. So from Mahavishnu comes Garbhodakshay Vishnu, who enters different universes. And from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Lord Brahma is born. And after the living entities are created, or, like, they are transferred from Mahavishnu to Prakriti, in each of the hearts of the living entities, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, or Paramatma, enters. But now we are going into more of the secondary creation, which also happened because Lord Brahma gave birth to many children. So, and then now the son of Lord Brahma is Manu, and their children and their names are being described. And Prabhupada gives the answer why, out of the many sons of Lord Brahma, why is Manu being described in Srimad Bhagavatam? So the reason he says is because he was actually a great devotee of Krishna, of the Supreme Lord. That's why Manu's lineage is being described. So Manu had three daughters, uh, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. And he also had two sons, um, Priyavrata and Uttanapada. So the first, out of 31 chapters, the first 6 chapters are descriptions of the sacrifice performed by King Daksha and how it was spoiled. Then 5 chapters after the first 6 chapters are descriptions of Maharaj Dhruva and his activities. That's a very important section in Srimad Bhagavatam, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself would listen to the pastimes of Dhruva many, many, many times. Many times. Because it's a very important lesson for any aspiring spiritualist. Because Dhruva Maharaj, like any one of us, had many material desires. He was not a pure devotee of the Lord. He was very ambitious because he was born in a Kshatriya family. He had this spirit of conquering over his enemies, conquering over and proving himself as the king. So because of that ambition, he went into the forest, and he obtained a vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He became a pure devotee of the Lord. So for any spiritual aspirant, if they want to progress on the path of spiritual life, determination and following the instructions of the spiritual master, both are important. And Dhruva Maharaj was a great example of great determination and faith in the instructions of his guru, Narad Muni. The next 11 chapters are activities of King Prithu. Prithu was also Shaktavesha avatar, as we were discussing. Prithu Maharaj carried the ruling carried the ruling potency of the Lord. So they are very amazing chapters in Srimad Bhagavatam, how he ruled the entire planet. And then the next 8 chapters are devoted to the activities of the Prajita kings. So as we read more, we will learn about these Prajita kings. So I think it also includes how they were instructed by Lord Shiva and their prayers. So again, like in the previous canto, we read about Devahuti, Kardama Muni, and their marriage leading to their son Kapila Dev, who was again an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are reading about another interesting section here, where Swayambhuva Manu is requesting his daughter to be married to Prajapati Ruchi. Prajapati, the word Prajapati means someone who has been given the assignment of procreation, bringing about children into this world. That is a Prajapati. So Prajapati Ruchi was married to Akuti. But Swayambhuva Manu requested that the son of Prajapati Ruchi and Akuti be given back to him. So this is a very interesting request, as being pointed out by Prabhupada, that Swayambhuva Manu already had 2 sons, Uttanapada and Priyavrata. In spite of that, he requested for the son of his daughter to be given to him for adoption. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that actually this is can be done, but in this case, Manu wanted the Supreme Personality of Godhead to appear as his son and grandson. That is the reason why he requested that Akuti gives her son to him. So this is a very difficult decision to make, because a mother is usually very attached to the child, especially the firstborn child. But in this case, actually, they are requesting that the child be given back. But for whenever there is a higher reason or a higher cause, sometimes these decisions were made in princely orders, especially for the lineage to continue. So that is the reason that is being stated here by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that Manu wanted the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be his son. Then the last purport to text 3 describes about Ruchi. So Ruchi was a great Brahmana, and he was also a Prajapati. And he got one son and one daughter by his wife Akuti. Now, this purport is very instructive for all of us. Recently, my husband was presenting an introduction to Bhakti Shastri, and one of the ladies who was from an Indian background, she asked, I am not a Brahmana, I'm not from a Brahmanical family, but you mentioned the word Brahmanical while you were presenting. So am I qualified to read Prabhupada's books? That was her question. And Prabhupada actually makes it very clear that Brahmanical culture means, Brahmanical qualifications means control of the senses, control of the mind, cleanliness, development of spiritual and material knowledge, simplicity, truthfulness, and faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are the qualifications of a Brahmana. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, nobody is born as a Brahmana. Somebody may be born with Brahmanical qualifications, but still he is not a qualified Brahmana unless he accepts a spiritual master and undergoes and is willing to undergo the discipline under the order and instructions of his spiritual master. And under the guidance of such a spiritual master, he gains all these qualities. Control of the senses, that means celibacy. Basically, that's a very important quality, which is very much overlooked in modern society. Celibacy is not given any importance, but control of the senses is one of the most important things, especially control of the tongue and genitals. But it's very unfortunate that this is being overlooked, and because of that, there are many evils in our society that are cropping from this lack of control and control of the mind. Cleanliness. So this is another important quality of a Brahmana. They're very clean. And development of material and spiritual knowledge. Simplicity. So this word simplicity is also very, very important, because a devotee is very straightforward in his dealings. And this is also, as Kali Yuga is progressing, this is becoming a very difficult quality, but actually it's very natural. Natural in the sense that simplicity means that one does not portray anything different from who he actually is. He speaks the truth, and he speaks the truth in a very simple fashion. That is simplicity. And truthfulness. And truthfulness is also a great quality. When truthfulness is actually the basis of entire spiritual life. If one is not honest with himself, he cannot be honest with others. What to speak of progressing on the path of spiritual life? It comes much later, after one develops the quality of truthfulness and faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when one starts to develop faith in Krishna, then all these qualities follow. But the cultivation of these qualities also greatly assist in all of the in progressing nicely on the path of spiritual life. So they go hand in hand. So this is actually to be cultivated, especially in Kali Yuga. These qualities have to be cultivated in Kali Yuga. One is not born with these qualities, unfortunately, because there are no proper samskaras, or there is no proper training for the father and mothers when they are begetting children. So because Ruchi was a Prajapati, and before he was a Prajapati, he followed all these Brahminical principles very strictly. He's called as a Brahma Varchasi. So Brahma Varchasi actually means that one who followed these rules very strictly. And if one is unable to follow these rules and regulations properly under the guidance of their father and mothers and the spiritual masters, then such a person is called a Brahma Bandhu. Brahmana is a qualified person. Brahma Bandhu. Bandhu means a relative or a friend. A relative or a friend is called a Bandhu. So Brahma Bandhu means he is a relative of a Brahmana. He's not really a Brahmana. He's just a relative of a Brahmana. That means he's unqualified. That's a polite way of saying he's unqualified. So they are not really capable. Not that they are not capable, but they're not willing to follow these rules and regulations. So the reason why one is called not qualified is because the more one positions himself in the mode of goodness as a Brahmana, one cultivates these qualities of truthfulness, simplicity, cleanliness, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental. It's not a Brahminical, like just a mode of goodness quality. But all these qualities make spiritual life more accessible. It's not a qualification in itself to become a devotee of the Lord. But when one situates oneself in the mode of goodness, then spiritual life becomes far more easier. That's all. Even Shudras, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, women, anybody for that matter can be a devotee of the Lord. But if one develops Brahminical qualities, it gives them a better access. The example often is given of a window. If the window is clean, it's a glass window, if the window is clean, then it gives an unobstructed view of what is outside. And usually transcendental knowledge is beyond one's access of senses and the mind and intelligence. But if the mind and intelligence are purified from the modes of passion and ignorance, in the mode of goodness, and one is positioned in the mode of goodness, then spiritual life becomes easily accessible. So that is the reason why these qualities are emphasized in the life of a devotee. So, but otherwise, one can always be at any point of time, any stage in life, one only needs to have a desire to become a devotee of the Lord. And the Lord is easily accessible because he is very much inclined to a person who turns to him. Krishna is so merciful. He never withdraws his mercy from anybody. It is our disposition towards him which determines whether we can access Krishna or not. So if we genuinely turn to Krishna, even though we may not have all these great qualifications, when any soul in this universe, if they genuinely turn to Krishna, Krishna will accept them. It is said in the Ramayana that Ravana was a demon, and but Lord Ramachandra was so kind. He told his soldiers that even if Ravana comes to me and he just asks me once to accept him, I will accept him. So that is the disposition of the Lord. He is so merciful, so kind. He's always favorably inclined to all of the living entities. So if a living entity genuinely turns to him even once, Krishna's protection, Krishna's grace, Krishna's kindness is easily accessible to anybody. And he is actually to be known through all of the Vedas. Vedaischa sarvam ahameva vedyo. So the purpose of all of the Vedas is that one knows Krishna. But at the same time, one need not learn all the Vedas. Even if he feels intuitively that, I have to turn to the Lord because I'm in a difficult position, um, immediately Krishna is available for such a person. So this is what we have in these three purports. If anybody would like to share more about what inspired them or what stuck with them, please share.
Thank you, Mataji. It's very nice the way of you described each verse by verse, and then glorifying Srila Prabhupada, how he give us these purports for our more clarity and then for our understanding. Very nice the way of you described. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So nice to have you on the class.
Thank you very much, Manjari Mataji, for explaining these, the reasons, especially why the father would take his daughter's son as his own. That, because this doesn't seem to be something that's done all the time, done regularly in Vedic culture, but it was done in the royal families. And I would imagine that this could have happened even in the royal dynasties that followed, not just in India, but all over the world. I bet some of this occurs. Like you said, to continue the family lineage, very, very important. And so thank you for clarifying that. And this idea of the what is it to be a true Brahminical personality? It's been said by Prabhupada, if you're not acting like it's not through birth, but it's through how one behaves. And what exactly is a Brahmana and what does that mean? And you explained this very nicely when you talked about the simplicity, the truthfulness, what it means to control the senses, etc. So basically, all of us, whether we achieve that level or not, we're really being trained to be Brahmins. Mm-hmm. All of us, that's what our training is. Even if we don't ultimately reach that stage, that's the goal here, is that we become this way, within and without. And I think it's just phenomenal. I think it's beautiful, very beautiful. And, it doesn't matter, for myself, if I get there or not, it's that I'm attempting to become one without knowing it. It's like I didn't even realize it. All of these things that the spiritual master is teaching us are preparing us to become Brahmins. So I really appreciated everything you had to say. It was very thorough and, of course, very nicely explained too. Very, very clear. Excuse me. And it is true that prior to, it makes sense. This is like the genesis of the Bible here in Canto 4. But prior to that, it is mentioned, how Lord Brahma came into the world and the first creation and how that came about. Those things have been explained. So it does make sense that here in the fourth canto, we would start with the genealogical table of daughters of Manu. The only other thing what was I going to ask you? I think you might have been there for this lecture. It was a long, long time ago when, oh gosh, my names are not kicking in today. Nityananda Pran Prabhu was giving a morning lecture, if I'm not mistaken, and he was talking about the fourth canto, and maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it was the 10th canto, but I'd like to know if I was, dreaming or, sometimes I think I misinterpret things because maybe my focus is not correct. I thought he said that this fourth canto was so deep that if you were not careful, if you did not have the proper type of, explanation, that you could get lost in this canto. Now, maybe he was talking about the 10th canto. I don't know, but that's just a question I'm putting out there. We were talking about this yesterday, and I thought he said it was the fourth canto, but thank you very, very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Govardhan Leela Mataji, for all your kind words. And we are very, very fortunate that, Prabhupada gave us these purports. So because of his purports, there is so much clarity. And Prabhupada does mention that he wants to create a society of Brahmanas. He mentions it many times in his lectures. If we hear his lectures, he says that today in Kali Yuga, we have Shudras because people are working for money. As soon as one accepts money in exchange of his services, he's a Shudra. And all the educational institutions nowadays are geared to producing Shudras. That means the society does not have a brain. It does not have arms. It does not have a belly. It's just producing legs. So it is not adequate for the society to function properly just by having many, many Shudras. So he said, even if 0.5%, sometimes he would give throughout these numbers. And he would say, even if 5% of the society becomes Brahminical, it will save the world. So Prabhupada did mention this, that his society is particularly meant for creating Brahmanas. And Brahmanas means who can think clearly, who can think beyond money, who can think about a higher spiritual goal. So thank you for bringing out the point. And I do not know why Nityanand Pran Prabhu spoke specifically about the fourth canto. Maybe we'll find out as we continue to read. But I have heard from other devotees that the fifth canto is very, very unique because it speaks about the entire structure of the universe. And one can get easily lost because there is so much detail about how the planetary systems are located and it's also very much different from what we study in school, because the descriptions of the locations of the sun and moon and the descriptions of the different planets are explained in a different way, although they may overlap at times. So I have not heard so much about the fourth canto, but I have heard from other speakers that the fifth canto is very bewildering. And some of Srila Prabhupada's disciples left while reading the fifth canto because they couldn't process it.
Okay, maybe it was the fifth. And I had purchased a book at the temple. It was called Puranic Cosmology. And I started to read that book and I got lost immediately. And it was talking all about the structure of the universe and the planets. And I was lost. I put it down. But I think, like you're saying, if I were to read the fifth canto, after that, maybe I can go back and try again to read that book, Puranic Cosmology. Because it's
Yeah, actually, we are also again very fortunate that we have the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So some devotees who were great scientists and philosophers, they wrote commentary on the fifth canto. So it may still bewilder us in spite of reading all those commentaries, but at least we have something to something in addition to Prabhupada's purports that we can also refer to if we are so inclined to understand.
well, that just teaches me, Mataji, to hear properly. Sometimes my ear is half there and half somewhere else. So now I understand what you're referring to. Thank you very much. I do believe it was then the fifth canto because it was very, very elaborated. Very elaborate. Maybe we were doing that class that morning. He was doing that morning class and discussed that we definitely needed to be guided through it in order to not get lost. So that's probably what it was. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ruchi Mataji, Manasinganga Mataji, would you like to say anything before we end? Ruchi Mataji, you have been exceptionally quiet today. Okay, perhaps they're busy. So we'll end here for today and we'll resume tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.